Hello. So today I'm going to do what I've meant to do for a long time, but I've only just had time to do, which is do a book review. And today what I'm going to be reviewing is a book called When Neitzsche Wept by Irvin Yalom. And it's a book I'd never heard of. And a few days ago, this baby here you can see behind me was playing in my mum's counselling room. My mum's a counsellor, therapist. While this baby was playing in that room, he picked out a book off the shelf, and the book was what I mentioned, Irvin Yalom's When Neitzsche Wept, which I thought looked interesting. So I don't have time to read anymore in the usual sense. All I can do is read audiobooks. So that's what I did with this one. And it's a really amazing book. I would really recommend checking it out. So the book is a fictionalized account of a meeting between Neitzsche, the great philosopher, and the Dr. Joseph Breuer. Joseph Breuer is a real historical figure. He contributed to medicine in a number of ways in relation to the functioning of the inner ear, and he was an accomplished medical practitioner. But at the time, you have to remember, there was no such thing as psychotherapy. There was no such thing really as counselling. There was certainly no psychiatry. There was neurology, and there were various conditions that we would today call them psychiatric conditions, which at the time were dumped in with neurology and called hysteria, or other kinds of neuropathy. So it's a really, really interesting book. It's really well done. It's really well written. There's a lot that shows you that the author, Yalom, is an accomplished psychiatrist, and himself he's a really well-regarded practitioner who's contributed to psychotherapy in a number of ways, and he's written lots of important non-fiction books in that field. But going back to the book, it's set in Vienna in the 1880s, and when we meet Breuer, who's really the central character, he's successful, he's got a thriving medical practice, he's married, he's got children, he's very well regarded within his community, but something's not quite right. He's recently had a near affair with one of his patients, and there's various underlying problems which are haunting his life. And the book opens with this unexpected meeting with another real historical figure, a woman called Lou, who tells Breuer of her friend, her dear friend Neitzsche, who is this currently unknown, but she thinks future great philosopher. She says that the future of European philosophy is hanging in the balance, and this is because Neitzsche is on the verge of suicide because of his medical symptoms such as migraine, but also because of a mounting despair, which she has no small part in making, in being responsible for. And so Breuer is drawn into this strange meeting with a strange German philosopher who is really misanthropic and intellectually great, but troubled. And Breuer then embarks on this journey, which will ultimately be an attempt to heal Neitzsche, but also himself, and invent psychotherapy into the bargain. So that's the plot in a nutshell. As I've said before, it's incredibly rich and well written. It's very evocative. The period is wonderfully recreated, and the characters really come to life. They're really full of life. They live and breathe, and I would highly recommend it. I don't want to give too much away in terms of spoilers. It's a bit of a dilemma that when you're doing a book review. What do you say? Do you just say that you like it and give a synopsis of the starting point, or do you talk a bit about your responses to it later on, which in some ways that's what I'd want to know when I come to a review. So what I've decided is I'll do spoilers and my responses to things later on, and I'll give you a chance to turn off before then. The other selling point about the book, something which I thought was brilliant, is it's got Sigmund Freud in it as a young doctor, affectionately known as Siggy, and he also plays a role in events as they unfold. So if you're interested in Freud, then I've never seen him portrayed as a young man before, a young, nervous but brilliant medical student. I think that's worth having a look at. In terms of the themes explored by the book, the invention of psychotherapy, as I've mentioned, and the relationship of that with the work of Neitzsche, and that is clearly managed with an expert hand. It's really wonderful, really wonderfully done. Another theme is, well, it's the big one. It's life, aging, death, meaning, all those important, lovely things which can keep you awake at night. All those are woven into the plot and explored and picked apart delicately, and or sometimes not so delicately, sometimes brutally. There's also nods, more than nods, there's also an exploration of what it means to be free. That's one of the central things that the two characters are grappling with. And there's also some acknowledgement of how things were at that time and how they've changed. For example, Breuer is obsessed at one point with being free, that his life is not his own, that he's had decisions taken for him, not by him, and it's pointed out to him by his wife that yes, you've had all these choices made for you, but what have I had? You've had so much more than me. You've had the chance of an education, you've had the chance to move forward in the world, which of course is denied to her as a woman. So the historical context is really interesting. Okay, well, that's my potted book review. I hope you've enjoyed it. The other thing I can say about this book is how I related to it personally, and of course we're all going to relate differently to what we read because of what we bring to the table in terms of our personalities and our life experience. And one of the reasons the book resonated with me is probably because I can relate a little bit to Breuer, in the sense that I'm a doctor, and even though I'm not in 19th century Vienna and I'm nowhere near as accomplished as Breuer, not by any stretch of the imagination, but some of the weight and responsibility that he carries I can relate to, as well as there's a lot of fun stuff from a medical point of view about how conditions were seen and treated during that time period, and how much more emphasis there was on clinical skills. I mean, Breuer's clinical skills would have blown me out of the water. The kind of things that you had to do back then because you didn't have any other option and it was just the done way. Yeah, really amazing, really fantastic, and really makes you pause to think how lucky we are, how spoilt we are with everything that's available to us medically today. So anyway, that's the last thing I wanted to say. That was my kind of quick capsule review of the book. If you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe, as everyone always says, although I think I'll probably end up with 1 or 2 subscribers at the very most, and maybe after a year or 2. And if you are interested in seeing any of my books, because I write mainly nothing as deep or meaningful really as this book, but I write predominantly fantasy fiction and comedic fantasy and some darker stuff. If you fancy checking that out, you can go to my website www.jamiebrindle.com, which is linked in the show notes below. I've usually got at least one book that's available to download for free. So if you want to read a short story or a flash fiction or anything of mine, go to my website and have a look. Thank you. And now I'll move on to talking a little bit about my response to bits later in the book, and this contains spoilers, so if you don't want spoilers, turn off. The biggest moment for me, which was where I was completely caught out and caught off guard, is this wonderful section where you think that Breuer has done it. He's given up his life, he's said goodbye to his wife, he's told her that he'll never see her again, and he's gone off into the world to find a new life and to make his own choices. And it's heartbreaking when it happens. You think it's really happening, and then of course what it transpires, this brilliant artifice, is that he's in a trance, and Freud is having him enter a trance state and explore what would happen if he left everything. And that is just wonderfully done. I mean, I would say that's the only really big spoiler-tastic bit, but I just wanted to mention it because I was so astounded by it. I thought it was wonderful, and I wonder if you did too. Hopefully you've not watched this bit before reading the book. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again. Let me know if there is any book that you think I should read and review with this baby who is now asleep. Bye bye.